Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with my best of 2020 video. This is what I consider to be the best bang for the buck as far as headphones, amps, dacs, and accessories. I did something like this about a year ago, and I told you what I thought were the best headphones at that time for the price. I'm going to go a little bit further with this one and also include runners up, which I think could be just as good or maybe even better, but maybe the price isn't as good, a little higher price. So I'm going to expand this a little bit. This video may run a little bit longer than last year. I also wanted to mention that I'm only listing things that I have actually reviewed. There's a lot of brands out there that I haven't had the chance to hear yet, and that's because I review what is loaned to me for review. I don't have the financial means to go out and buy headphones and equipment just for reviewing purposes. So everything you're seeing here is things that companies have loaned to me for review, and if you're not hearing the names that you're familiar with, or the names of equipment that you really enjoy, I'm not saying that these are necessarily better. I'm just saying that these are the best of what I've had the chance to review over the last 2 years. As far as I know, everything on this list is still available, and the prices I'm giving are the prices that I last checked. I have 39 items on this list tonight, and I didn't get a chance to go back and check every single one for the current price. So if my prices aren't entirely accurate, I apologize, and please don't hold me or the companies that sell this equipment to those prices. These are just the last price that I was aware of. So anyway, I'm going to divide this video into 3 categories. The first will be headphones, IEMs, earbuds, that sort of thing. The second category will be headphone amps and dacs, and then the third will be accessories. So, and then at each category, I'm going to start at the cheapest end, the lowest price end, which would be your budget entry-level items, and work my way through to the higher end items. And then at the end of this, I'm going to tell you what I think is my headphone of the year, the best headphone for the price, and the best combo of a headphone and amp combination. So everything on here I have reviewed, and you can go back and look at my full reviews over the last 2 years. So I'm going to get started with headphones and start at the budget end. And at the very low end would be the Venture Electronics Monk Plus. This is an earbud, and the last I checked they sold for $6, and these things actually sound pretty good. They're very clear, they're detailed, they have a decent tone balance, which I would consider pretty neutral. And for $6, I mean, it's something you can actually listen to without being disappointed. Or if you're looking for something low price for the kids because they may lose them or whatever, $6, you can't beat them. Next on my line would be the Venture Electronics Bonus IE, which is a $20 pair of IEMs that fit in the ear canals, and I am extremely impressed by these. They have a full frequency range. They actually have incredible bass. It goes very deep, has a lot of weight to it, and it's actually very tight and well controlled. They extend well into the treble, and these things to me sound like a $100 plus pair of headphones. So just an outstanding deal. Getting into actual headphones, at the low end of what I would consider an audiophile headphone, an entry-level audiophile headphone, would be the Philips SHP 9500. And these things, in my opinion, they're very neutral, have a very good tone balance. They extend pretty well both into the bass and treble. They have good detail. I mean, they're not the best headphones I've ever heard, but the last I checked, these things sell for about $75 to $80. They're light, they're comfortable, they're easy to drive, and if you or someone you know is just getting into headphones and wants something with, an audiophile sound that, exaggerated bass, that sort of thing, this is a great starting point as far as I'm concerned. Next on my list for slightly more at $99 would be the Grotto SR80E. And the SR80E not only has a audiophile sound, but they have exceptional detail. I mean, these things detail on a level with headphones 5 and 10 times their price. The bass, some people think is a little bit thin. It's really not bad. I would consider it neutral, but it's definitely not exaggerated. And some people do think the treble is a little bit bright on them, so you might want to use a little bit of tone balance, or if you just don't like bright treble, you might want to check out the Philips SHP 9500 instead. They're not as bright as the Grottos, but as far as detail, they cannot be beat for the price, as far as I know. Next on my list, we're stepping up a little bit, which would be the Hifiman Sundara, and we're jumping up to $350. They originally sold for $500, but from everything I've heard, these can't be beat at that price. They have an excellent tone balance, they have exceptional detail, they're light, they're comfortable, and I really don't know of any other headphone that I've heard anyway that can even compete with them at that price. I mean, this is a headphone that's going to take you probably 90% of the way to what I would consider, the high end of headphones. They really are that good. I mean, it's not quite as good as the more expensive headphones, but I mean, you're going to get a serious taste of a neutral, well-balanced, audiophile grade headphone. Some people find the bass a little bit thin, some people find the treble a little bit bright, but I personally really like the way they sound. Jumping up a little bit higher, getting into what I would consider mid-fi, would be the first on my list is the LSA HP2. This is a closed back headphone with a dynamic driver, and it is made for LSA by Clark Audio out of Russia, and I believe it currently, or it did sell for $799. I believe that's still the same price. And this was basically a revision of the Clark Magni, and the Clark Magni was my headphone of the year last year. I thought it was the best headphone for the price, and this is basically a revised, upgraded version of it, and I find this headphone to be incredible. In my opinion, this headphone at $799 competes with headphones of 2, 3, even 4 times the price. You can't beat the level of detail this headphone has. It has exceptional extension into the sub bass, really, really low, tight sub bass. The mid bass is not emphasized, but I think is balanced very well, and these things are just crystal clean. And for a closed back headphone, I actually have a pretty decent, pretty wide soundstage, almost on the level of an open back headphone. And I couldn't recommend a headphone more than I do the LSA HP2. I also want to mention a few runners up, because this is a very strong category in the 800 to 1000 range, and there's several headphones that I think are outstanding, and they didn't necessarily make number one on the list, which would be the LSA HP2, but I really like these headphones, and depending on your taste, they might be better suited for you. The LSA is kind of, I would consider, very neutral, and some people like a warmer, bassier headphone. And if you're one of these people, a couple recommendations I would make would be the Bear Dynamics T1 second generation that I reviewed sometime back earlier this year. And the last I knew, they sold for about $700. It's a little bit warmer and a little bit bassier than the LSA, but you do sacrifice a slight amount of detail. But it's just a very pleasant, very enjoyable headphone. They're very light and comfortable. Really like the Beyerdynamic T1 second generation. Another on my list, and this is something I just reviewed a couple days ago, would be the Clark Audio AEON 2 open back, which sells for $899. And it's even a little bit more bassy, a little more emphasis in the mid bass, and a little bit just slightly set back in the mid range. But once again, an extremely pleasant headphone that is very forgiving, that you can listen to your whole entire music collection, and it's not analytical to the point where it's going to reveal all the flaws in less than perfect recordings. Once again, very light, very comfortable. It is slightly hard to drive though. It's about on the level of the Hifiman Sundara. You do need an amp behind that headphone. Another runner-up I just wanted to mention, the Kennerton Magni, which is a lot like the LSA HP2. It would be the older version. I think it's still sold by Kennerton, and I believe it sells for $760 or $70, something like that. Kennerton does occasionally have sales and drops the price though. This was my headphone of the year last year, and it probably would be again this year, but the LSA HP2 I find to be slightly better, a little bit better detail, a little bit better extension in the sub bass, but it's real close though. It's 90 to 95% of the way to the LSA. Going up a little bit in price, and this is another exceptional deal in my opinion, is the LSA HP1. This was also made for Kennerton made by Kennerton for LSA, and this is based on the Kennerton Odin, which is about a $2,200 headphone. And the last I checked, this headphone was selling for $12.99. It may have gone up to $13.99, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a planar magnetic driver, and it's lighter than the Odin. It's very comfortable. It has exceptional detail, but once again, I would consider this very neutral. If you're a bass head, you're probably going to want something different. The bass is very much neutral. It's not emphasized. The treble can be a little bit bright for some people. I would put it on the level of like Hifiman brightness in the treble. If you find Hifiman too bright, the HP1 might be too bright for you, but this is an extremely detailed headphone, can hold its own with any headphone of any price I've ever reviewed as far as detail, and it has a huge sound stage. It is an open back, and this headphone holds its own against anything in the $2,000 range in my opinion. Also, if you are considering a Hifiman Arya, which I'll talk about in a minute, it's a little bit more expensive. This would be a alternative that I would highly recommend. It's about $300 cheaper, and in my opinion, a lot better build quality. But just an exceptional headphone for the price. Runner up, alternative to that would be the Urzetish Mania, which I reviewed about a year and a half ago. A little warmer, a little bassier. That does have a dynamic driver, and it's but very efficient. It's a little bit big, a little bit heavy, but really, really good sound. I really like that headphone. Going up in price a little bit, now we're at the Hifiman Arya, which sells for $15.99 the last I checked, and I have heard nothing good or nothing bad about the Arya. People talk about the Arya, many say it's the best headphone in that price range, and say to beat it, you've got to go up to the $3,500 Hi-Fi Man HE1000 SE. And to be honest, I mean, you can't beat it for detail. It just has a beautiful sound. It has a huge sound stage, and it's sort of medium, hard to drive. It's a little bit harder than the Sundara. So if you have an Arya, you're going to want to hook up a pretty substantial headphone amp to this. Not a phone, definitely not for a portable, or definitely not for a phone, and probably not for a portable, even though there are a few portables out there that probably would drive it okay. But just an excellent headphone. The only complaint I have about it is it's made mostly of plastic, and some people think it feels a little bit cheaply made for a $1,600 headphone. But as far as the sound, it's hard to beat. The Arya is pretty neutral. It has excellent bass extension, but it's not a bass head headphone. In that price range, if you are a bass head and you're looking for very hard driving bass, I would consider looking at the Spirit Torino Super Ligera. It sells for $16.99. It's a dynamic driver, and this headphone has not only huge amounts of bass, but it's tight, well-controlled bass. I personally had to use a little bit of EQ on this and tone the bass down a little. Once, because I thought the bass sort of overwhelmed the mid-range. Once I did, the mid-range detail came out, and it's a fantastic headphone. So if you're a bass head in the $16.99 range, give this headphone a look. Jumping up to the next category, and at $2,500, my recommendation is the Kennerton Woden. This is a planar magnetic headphone. It has exceptional detail. Beyond, it could possibly be the most detailed headphone I've heard at any price. The sound stage is huge, it's easy to drive, it's lightweight, it's comfortable, and just an outstanding headphone in my opinion. A couple of honorable mentions would be the Urzetish Phobos, which the last I checked sold for about $22.50. Also exceptional detail, and possibly the largest soundstage that I've heard in any headphone up to this point. It is a little bit big and it is a little bit heavy, but it's surprisingly comfortable for its weight. Another honorable mention would be the Kennerton Odin, which is sort of an older version of the Kennerton Woden. It sells for about $2,200 the last I checked, and it's a little bit warmer, a little bit bassier than the Woden. So if you're looking for something just slightly on the warm, bassy side of neutral, you might want to look at the Kennerton Odin. Excuse me. In that same price category, I think the last I checked about $2,400, would be the Spirit Torino Radiante, which is a closed back, and it actually has the most powerful, heaviest bass of any headphone I've reviewed so far, but yet it is still tight and controlled. It is a little bit bassy for my personal use. I prefer a more neutral headphone, but if you're a bass head, this might be just the headphone for you. But if you're not an extreme bass head with a little EQing, you can tone down the bass a little bit, bring up the mid-range a little, and it becomes a very detailed, very high-quality headphone, and I really like that. And like I said, if you're not looking for a neutral headphone, looking for a lot of emphasis to the bass, take a look at the closed back Spirit Torino Radiante. Jumping up to the high end, or as high end as I've reviewed so far, we're up in the over 3,000 category now. My number one pick is the Kennerton Thror, and I like that headphone so much that I actually did buy it from Kennerton, and it has been my reference headphone for quite a while. The detail's exceptional, the extension on both ends is very good. It's, I would say, With the stock ear pads, which would be the ECL01s, it has a very neutral sound. I personally switched over to the ECL02 ear pads made by Kennerton and sold for about $80, which boosts the bass maybe about 3 decibels. And it's just a headphone I just really, really enjoy. It is my, top pick in the over 3,000 category. Couple of honorable mentions I'd like to make in that category would be first the Meze Empyrean, which sells for $3,000. It isn't the last word in detail, and it doesn't have the world's tightest bass, but it's a little on the warm side of neutral and just a very, very pleasant, enjoyable headphone. And unless you compare it to a more analytical headphone, you will never miss out on the detail. It's 95% of the way there on detail compared to, like, say, the Kennerton Thrower. The build quality is exceptional, and it could possibly be the most comfortable headphone I've ever worn, even maybe more so than the Hifiman Arya. Another honorable mention, and this would be if you are a bass head but want a serious headphone. So if you're up in the over $3,000 category, if that's, a price range you can shop in, but you're looking for a bass head headphone that has the detail and the quality of an audiophile, top-end audiophile headphone, take a look at the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse Ragnar. The last I checked, it sold for $39.95. It is not a cheap headphone, but it has a ton of tight, well-controlled bass, and with a little EQing, you can make it pretty much anything you want. You can leave the bass where it's at, or you can tone the bass down a little bit, which will bring the mid-range out a little, but it has exceptional detail and very solid, hard-hitting bass. Going to my next category, which would be amps and dacs. At the budget end, I highly recommend the JDS Labs Atom. This is a $99 headphone amp. It is exceptionally clean, has an almost analytical sound. You will not sacrifice any detail at all with this. And I believe it's rated at 1 watt into 32 ohms, but I found it to have enough power to power just about any headphone. It even did a pretty good job with the Hifiman HE560. Next on my list would be, and this I just reviewed just a few days ago actually, maybe about a week ago, is the iFi Zen DAC, which is a combination DAC and headphone amp. It's a USB DAC, that's the only input it has, but this sells for $129.95, and I very highly recommend this as a exceptional entry-level DAC headphone combination. It will power almost any headphone, and it will substantially increase the sound quality off of your computer. If you're using a headphone jack off your computer, this will give you it's not even comparable, just so much better sound, and the power to drive almost any headphone. And it's actually very small. I think you can see it here behind me, sitting under my screen, and it's just works out perfect for listening to headphones here at my computer station. Something else I reviewed recently would be the Topping E30 DAC. This also sells for $129. It's a DAC only, but in my opinion, it is an exceptional DAC and actually competes with DACs of 3-4 times that price from only a few years ago. Really, really enjoy it, and actually like it so much I've offered to buy it from Apos Audio that loaned it to me. And then jumping up a little bit, and I'm not sure if it's still available, but I was contacted recently by Burson, and they are coming out with a new revised version of this. But a couple of years ago I reviewed the Burson Fun, which sells for $299, and just found it to be an exceptional amp. Very, very clean, Very quiet, no background noise at all. And the best part about it, it had switchable op amps that you could just pull the op amps out and switch them over. And I tried it with the Burson Classic and the Burson, what was the other? I can't remember the name of the other right now. But you could, it made a pretty substantial difference in the sound, the tone balance, and just a really good amp for the price. And I think it was rated at 2.1 watts, pure A output, or pure Class A. And for $299, it would drive any headphone I had very well, and just really enjoyed it. Jumping up a little bit in price, and this would be a tube amp, in fact an OTL type, output transformerless tube amp, and that would be the Clark Audio Echo, which the last I knew had sold for about $675 in the US. Excuse me. This is just an amp that I really enjoy. It's one of the few tube amps I have reviewed, and this is actually considered by Clark Audio to be an entry-level tube amp, but in my opinion, this amp sounds as good as just about anything I've heard up into the $2,000 range. It's not the most powerful amp in the world. It's not going to work with hard-to-drive planar magnetic headphones, but with easier to drive headphones, even planar magnetic, which would be some of the Kennerton headphones, and or high impedance headphones, like especially the Bear Dynamics T1, which is a 600 ohm headphone. This amp is exceptional, and to be honest, if I'm not reviewing and just sitting down to some, listening at night, even critical listening, I very often use that amp over some of the much more expensive solid state amps that I've had here. Just I really like that amp and couldn't recommend it more. Runner up, and I just wanted to mention the Urzetish Bacillus tilia that I reviewed a couple years ago. As far as I know, it's still available. I think it sells for about $650 or $695 in American dollars. It's not real powerful, but it will power most headphones pretty well, even up to like the Sundara. But it is probably the most tube-like sound that I've heard in a solid state amp, and it's just got a warm, slightly bassy, beautiful sound to it. My reference amp for the last couple of years, and I still think this is a most bang for the buck amp. I realize it's made in China, but I think Audio GD is a good company, and that would be the Audio GD Master 9. This sells for, I think, around $1,400, $1,300, $1,400, but you're looking at about $1,500, $1,600 by the time you get it to the United States with shipping costs. It is huge, and it is heavy. It's a full 17 by 17 inches by about 4.5 inches tall, and it weighs, just the amp alone, is 32 pounds. So this thing is huge. It needs a deep shelf, but it has almost unlimited power. It has, I believe, 5 inputs and I think 5 outputs and a preamp function. It's very quiet. It's very versatile. It's fully balanced, and I can use just about any headphone with this, and because of that, it's become my reference amp. So I do really recommend it. A couple of, getting into a higher end category would be an amp I reviewed earlier this year. And in my high end category, this would be the first on my list, the Headamp GSX Mini. I believe it sells for about $1,800 in its stock form. The one I had that I reviewed had an upgrade resistor ladder volume control, and I believe that sold for $2,000 the way I reviewed it. And just an exceptional amp. The quietest amp I have ever reviewed up to this point. Just absolute dead silent background. It has single-ended and balanced outputs. The only thing I would say, if you're going to use this for a hard-to-drive headphone, like say the Hifiman Arya, you're going to want to use the balanced output. The single-ended output on this just doesn't have enough power, in my opinion, for something hard to drive like the Arya or say the HE560, something like that. But from the balanced output and high gain, it has the power, and just an exceptional amp, and like I said, just dead quiet backgrounds. A couple of runner-ups that really it was a hard decision, because I also reviewed the SPL Phonitor XE, and which I believe sells for about $2,000, and I would say it's almost a tie for me between the Headamp GSX Mini and the SPL Phonitor XE. It's got a lot of features. It's got enough power for anything I tried it with, and it has some really cool VU meters on it, and it also has what SPL calls a matrix, which is a crossfeed that will simulate being in a room with speakers instead of headphones, and it actually does a pretty good job. And it has several adjustments. You can adjust the angle and the time delay, and it's really fun to play with, and really enjoyed that amp. Another amp I wanted that's on my list as a runner-up would be the Wells Audio Milo. The version I reviewed had an upgrade resistor ladder volume control and sold for about $22.50. And this amp is exceptional with hard-to-drive headphones. I don't recommend it if you've got easy-to-drive, efficient headphones, because it has a huge amount of gain, almost endless power, and with a efficient headphone, you are going to pick up a little bit of background hiss. But with a harder-to-drive headphone, it is exceptional. It's probably the best sound I heard out of the Hifiman Arya. So I heard it also works very well with hard-to-drive headphones like the Hifiman Sundara or the Abyss headphones, which are known to be hard to drive. So definitely on my list. Another amp that I just wanted to give a quick mention to is the Emotiva A100 Bass X, which sells for only $229. This was originally made as a speaker amp, but because so many people were using the speaker outputs to drive hard-to-drive headphones, they put a headphone jack in it, and with the installation of a couple jumpers that come with it, it's a 10-minute job to put them in. It puts the full output of 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms out of the headphone jack, which is a single-ended 1/4-inch jack, and it will provide as much clean power as any headphone amp out there for only $229. It lacks features and it lacks refinement, but it puts out an exceptional amount of clean power, and you can drive anything, including the Hifiman HE6. And I used it with the Hifiman Arya, and it's just a slight step down from, you know, a high-end headphone like the, or a high-end amp like the Audio GD Master 9 or the Wells Audio. Obviously doesn't have the features, doesn't have the precise volume control, but if you need something to drive, hard to drive headphones on a budget, I recommend the Emotiva A100 Bass X. My last category would be accessories, and I'm going to go through these pretty quick. I still highly recommend the Shit Loki, which is a 4-band EQ, and it's dead quiet. It doesn't add any distortion, so if you want to equalize your tone balance, this EQ, in my opinion, can fix the tone balance of any headphone I've ever heard and make it sound the way you want it to. For an example, the Spirit Torino headphones were a little bit too bassy for me, but with a slight cut to the bass, a little bit of boost in the upper mid-range, and they sounded really, really good. I mean, outstanding to me, and can't recommend more of the Shit Loki. I'm just waiting for Shit to come out with a Loki 2. They call this the Loki Mini. I'm hoping they come out with a larger version that is fully balanced and possibly maybe 6 bands of EQ instead of 4. I want to recommend the Pangea 15-foot extension cable for $14.95 if you need a longer cable. It's very high quality in my opinion and doesn't change the sound of your headphones at all. Something else, the Apache 2800 hard case that's sold through Harbor Freight Tools, in my opinion, makes an excellent case. Waterproof, dustproof, very durable. You can stand on it. I can stand on it without damaging the headphones, and I weigh about 205 pounds. And it comes with foam it has the foam in it, and it comes in little cubes, and you can pull it apart to fit any headphone you can. I personally have 6 of them, and at $29.95, I've heard it compares almost exactly to the Pelican cases that are a lot more expensive. Something else I wanted to recommend is the Core Power Technologies Deep Core 1800 and Equicore 600. These are power conditioners, and I had been using a Monster Power 5100, I forgot the model number, but anyway, it was about a $700 power conditioner, and it's actually the third one. I had 2 go bad and bought a third and combined 2 of them to make a working unit. But anyway, but this, through the Monster power supply, I was picking up noise from the LED track lights in my room. It may have been the dimmer switch, but I was picking up noise from other things like ceiling fan motors and halogen lights and some different things. And this combination of power conditioners basically cleaned everything out of my system. Also, my Audio GD Master 9, before I used that, was giving off a slight hum. Not audible through the headphones, but I could hear the unit itself had a slight hum. And after I hooked it up to the power core conditioners, I had no hum at all. It's dead quiet. So they are a little bit expensive. I think each unit sells for about $12.99, but the quality is excellent in my opinion. A couple other small accessories would be the Kennerton ECL101 and ECL02 ear pads. They sell for about $80. They're made of real lambskin leather. They're very comfortable in my opinion. And they do fit on the Hifiman headphones, such as the Sundara, the HE500, 560, and make a really good upgrade in my opinion. They not only improve the sound, but substantially increase the comfort of those headphones. So recommend those if you're looking for a better headphone ear pad, because like the Hifiman, the cheaper Hifiman headphones, the Sundara and down, the pads just don't seem to hold up for more than a few years. And last on my accessory list would be the Venture Electronics. They're 4-pin XLR adapters. I think I have one here. I can show you this. They plug into your 4-pin XLR output on your amp, and they come in 3 different sizes. They convert to 2.5 millimeter, 3.5 millimeter balanced. The 2.5 millimeters balanced also, all 3 are. And then this one here is a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced output. So if you've got a pair of IEMs or whatever that has a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon plug on it, you can use this and plug it into your desk amp with your 4-pin XLR. I think these sell for $30 a piece. They're made of aluminum and seem to be very high quality. So last on my list, or the last 2 things, I wanted to give you my headphone of the year. And this year, what I think is the best headphone buy, I think this is an exceptional headphone that will compare with anything at 3-4 times the price. It is the LSA HP2, which is made by Kennerton for LSA. It's the newer revised version of the Kennerton Magni, which was my headphone of the year last year. The detail is exceptional. The sub bass is exceptional, second to none. It's not a bass head headphone. It doesn't emphasize the bass, but the extension into the sub bass is exceptional, and the sound stage is very good for a closed back headphone, and they're very easy to drive, they're very light, and they're very comfortable. And I think they still sell for $7.99. This is my headphone of the year for 2020, most bang for the buck headphone. Like I said, I think this compares with anything up into the $2,000, even $3,000 range. And then I have one last category, and that is best combo of the year, and that would be the headphone and amp that I think work best together, the best synergy, and that would be the Felix Audio Echo tube amp and the Bear Dynamics T1 second generation headphone, which is a 600 ohm headphone. These two just work so well together. That combo, you're looking at about probably $1,400–1,500 for the combo, which isn't cheap, but in my opinion, it holds its own against any amp combo that I've heard up into the $3,000–4,000 range. Just exceptional sound. The two just work so well together, like they were made for each other. So combo of the year, Felix Audio Echo, which sells for about $675 in the USA. Bear Dynamics T1 second generation. I think I heard that there's a third generation out now. I'm not sure, and I don't know if it's still a 600 ohm headphone. So I don't know what. I don't have any opinion on the third generation. If it's out, I haven't heard it. But the second generation and the Felix Audio is just an exceptional combo in my opinion, and I would think 99% of you out there would be happy with it. So anyway, this has turned into probably my longest video ever, and I'm going to wrap this up. But this is what I feel is the best buys of the year 2020, or what I've reviewed in the year. So anyway, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Or please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you are all welcome to join us at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. We're up to about 9,700 members. Once again, thanks for watching my video.